This is what you missed on Emma's gymnastics journey. I tested out a bunch of pull-up workouts for a month, got super strong, but also super tight in my upper body. My gymnastics skills got worse because of that tightness, and now I occasionally headbutt the ground in frustration. Speaking of which, if you want more details, make sure to check these two videos out. And then this one too, just for fun. So since Tom Merrick won in my pull-up video, I figured he'd have to have the honors of getting my range of motion back. Well deserved, sir, well deserved. Over 5 weeks, I did every single upper body mobility video on Tom's channel, made a routine specifically for my body which improved my range of motion even further than it was originally, and got my flips back. And now I'm gonna tell you all about it. Blah, blah, blah. Brilliant, Emma, brilliant. So this is where we pick back up in our story the day after the final pull-up check-in, where our heroine is desperate to get back her overhead mobility. First Tom Merrick stretching, here we go! I started with Tom's top 3 lat stretches because, well, pull-ups were the culprit here, so logically I thought some lat stretches might help. This first stretch seemed to be one of Tom's favorites because I saw it repeated a ton throughout these 9 videos. And I liked it too, though for different reasons than I had originally expected. I don't think I'm doing it correctly to stretch my lats. However, I'm feeling the stretch really deep and the part of my upper back that feels the most tight right now. Like it's right, let me see if I can show you. Right. Instead of playing a minute of me struggling to point to the middle of my back, I thought I'd just pause it here and show you myself. You know, as if editing Emma is a separate being entirely. Maybe it's so tight that it's inhibiting my lats from being stretched right now. I don't know, but it's definitely doing a good thing for my body currently, so I'm happy about it. The next stretch I actually did feel in my lats, and really well too. I first tried it with both my arms using my counter, but found better success one arm at a time with my door handle instead. That way I could deepen the stretch by turning into my armpit and use my legs to push away from the door. And the last stretch is, whoa now, wait a minute, who is that? JK, you're always welcome here, Tom. Now I actually have no idea where the footage is for that last stretch, so here's the second best thing I could come up with. Honestly, it's not too far off. Okay, maybe the 8-pack isn't quite the same, just subtract a few and we're good. It's another day that I've woken up with my upper back and shoulders feeling super tight, so I'm excited for the mobility workout. For the first 2 weeks, everything was tight, so any upper body stretching felt amazing. But the 3 lat stretches I just showed, I did give a bit of extra love. They felt particularly nice. During these 2 weeks, I also took a break from gymnastics classes and any movement that required explosive upper body strength or maxing out my strength. I just really needed to chill out and relax for a little bit. Don't get me wrong, I still did upper body strength and conditioning, just nothing super intense. The goal here was to maintain my strength but get my mobility back. I definitely did not want to lose all my pull-up progress. That would be such a waste. Oh, and I heated up this guy in the microwave and used it like 3 times a day on my traps. Super clutch and also adorable. Still feeling tight, but definitely way better than when I started. During the 3rd week, I still felt tight, but with some effort, I could finally get my range of motion close to what it was before. Mind you, it wasn't as easy. And this is when I went back to the gymnastics classes. And what do you know, miraculously, I could backflip again. I was really happy to be back training, and then there was an incident. But I don't want to rain on my parade just yet, so I'll talk about that later. By the end of the 4th week, that stinking tightness was finally gone. It really surprised me how long that stuck around for. Anyways, my mobility was as good as it was before, but I was keen on getting it even better, because in gymnastics, having really good overhead mobility and shoulder mobility in general can help unlock skills that you'd otherwise need to compensate with a ton of strength and power from somewhere else, or you just can't do at all. So this is where I really spent time in figuring out my inhibitors and a good routine that I can do regularly before practices. I was aware that there are some people who can't get their arms straight by the ears because of structural reasons, they just genetically can't, and looking at the other Ogilvies in my family, none of our overhead mobility is perfect. Well, actually my mother's is pretty good, but she started off as a kulukukui, so that's definitely an advantage. Regardless, I was pretty sure we could all improve at least a little bit if we consistently worked on whatever issues particular to our body. So this is what I came up with. I started out with a foam roller or a tennis ball. If I had a lacrosse ball, I would definitely use that on my muscles connected to my shoulders that can inhibit mobility. The big players for me tend to be my lats, pecs, thoracic cage, and anterior delt. I'll usually only roll 1 or 2 for time's sake, pick depending on how I'm feeling that day, and just pick whichever ones that feel like they need a bit more attention. And I'll roll them for about a minute 30 seconds. It's important to note here that everybody's different, so if you're looking to improve your overhead mobility, a good beginning spot is definitely identifying what soft tissue is tight on your body or not tight. Tightness might very well not be an issue for you. This is gonna be my dinner! Then I like to do a couple of warm-up drills, kind of like dynamic stretching. My muscles aren't working hard here, just feeling out the motion and getting a light stretch. Again, depending on the day and how I'm feeling, I'll just pick 1 or 2 exercises. Next, I'll passively stretch, either by hanging or lying on my coffee table, arms extended over my head with a couple of coconut milk cans. And last, but definitely not least, I'll work on some strength and stability. Here I'll pick at least 2. Most of the time I do all 3 actually, because for my body, I think these stability exercises are actually the most important. Getting to know my overhead mobility over the last month, I really think my shoulder flexion is mostly inhibited by muscle imbalance. And I mostly think that because after watching footage of me passively stretching, I noticed that after I'm really warmed up, I can actually achieve full range of motion with my arms straight behind my ears. So this is my overhead mobility routine and how I use it today, though I'm sure it'll change as my body changes and as I get exposed to more drills and exercises. That's one of the fun things about this process. I really feel like I'm constantly having to learn and relearn my body as it adapts to all the crazy stuff I'm asking it to do. So that's what happened. I learned a ton about my overhead mobility, assessed my body's weak points, aka muscle imbalance, and made a routine to cater to it that is working pretty well so far. And now that we've got that out of the way, do you remember at the beginning of week 3 I talked about an incident? Little interruption. Hello friends. This week has not been my week. I thought I'd jump on here to tell you a little story time about how chocolate cake nearly ruined my gymnastics career. The story begins with it being date night and my boyfriend really wanted chocolate cake. Now I'm not usually a chocolate cake type of person. I'm a fruity tooty gal myself, but that night it sounded good. So we went to Whole Foods and we got a little chocolate cake in a cup. There was a lot of frosting on this guy. It was a big boy cake. So we ended up sharing it. It was just so dense and sweet and super chocolatey. Like I just got chocolated out really quick. Hello baby, did you scratch me? You want something? Okay. Yeah, anyways, I got chocolated out super quick. That night I had such a bad stomachache. It was so bad. I had so much trouble sleeping. That day I was supposed to train gymnastics and I really wanted to train because I wasn't able to make any of the practices that entire week. And you know when you're just like looking forward to something a lot, it just sucks. It sucks so much to not be able to go because of your own doing. I kept on rationalizing to myself that if I just go for a little bit, warm up, and test out the waters, you know, like that can't be so bad. But driving over, I had this sick feeling in my stomach. My mom actually calls it the belly alarm, when you just kind of inherently know something is off. And I just knew that something bad was gonna happen. But it wouldn't be me if I didn't push it just a little. Because sometimes it does work out. Like sometimes even if you get there and you're not feeling on, 20 minutes into the session, you feel great. So I was hoping maybe that might happen, and if it didn't, I'd back off. This did not happen to me. 20 minutes into the workout, I landed a front flip and I landed too low because my muscles just weren't working properly. Like it felt like my muscles were only working at like 70% capacity. So I just didn't get enough power into my jump. And when I landed, instead of like, you know, catching yourself in that squat position if you're too low, my body just wasn't functioning properly and my right leg just gave out on me. Like it just buckled in, I heard a pop, and then immediately followed a ton of pain. So I had to leave the gym. I left the gym and hobbled out. Super embarrassing. You know when you're like hobbling, you get injured and you just feel like everyone's watching you? I'm sure like hardly anybody was, but in my mind, everybody was like, oh, poor Emma, sad Emma. Fortunately, it's just a sprain, not super bad, maybe grade 1 or grade 2. And it's healing really fast. I've already seen a ton of progress in the last week. Like I hurt myself Friday night and now it's Wednesday and I'm able to walk around pretty well. And it particularly sucks because my overhead mobility was getting so much better. I got my backflips back and I was planning on working back handsprings that week. And then I got injured. So, one step forward, 2 steps back. That's how it feels sometimes. So anyways, the lesson of today is frosting sucks. It doesn't belong on a cake. Cakes are much better without it. And now I'm gonna go to bed because tomorrow morning I'm waking up at 4 a.m. to watch the Olympics. It's the women's gymnastics all-around final and I'm super excited for it. It's gonna be a party over here. Just kidding. It's gonna be very tiring, but you know, I'm just really excited that I can't not watch it.
A few moments later.